Hello, I'm John Adams. One of the most important things about landscape photography is getting good foreground interest. You need something right at the front of your picture that helps lead the eye in to the rest of the scene. Now in this example here, I haven't really got any. I've got some nice flowing water, but there's not a lot going on. There's nothing to hold the attention down in this bottom half of the picture. And a way around it with your camera is to actually move until you've got some good foreground interest. It could be a few rocks here, or a tree branch, or anything that would actually attract the attention of the viewer and take them into the rest of the picture. But unfortunately there's nothing here. I do love the background though. If we look at that independently, let me just use the crop tool to show you. Let's just make a quick crop around this sort of top half of the scene. You can see there we've got a lovely backdrop. But if we move the crop down, we don't have an interesting foreground. So I'll just press escape to get rid of the crop. Now, a little further up this particular stream, I saw this scene, which has got a much more interesting foreground. If we just take that in isolation in the way we just have, you can see there we've got lots of interest. That's actually pointing into the scene. We've got these little sort of rocks sticking up here with some flowing water around, and there's lots of direction to the composition of the picture. There's lots of sort of angles to lead your eye into the image. So what I'd like to do is combine this foreground with this background, and that's easier than it looks. It can be surprisingly simple to achieve this kind of effect. And what we're going to do, we're going to start with the background, and we're going to make a selection. I'm using Photoshop Elements 2 here. I'm just going to take the normal freehand lasso tool, this one here, and then I'm going to draw around the image. I don't want this tree in, I don't want these people in, but I do want this kind of these pointers, these angles that lead you into the scene. So I'm just going to start over on this side and just draw roughly. Don't have to be too accurate. Take it through over these rocks, and then we'll come through and out the other side. That's the kind of thing. Now I'll go right the way around the outside of the image, just holding down my mouse button all the time, and stop there. And that will make me a nice selection. I'm now going to feather this selection, so you can do this by going to Select, Feather. This will soften the edge, which will help us when we're blending it in. And an amount of 50 pixels, that's perhaps a bit too much for what I want to achieve here. So I'll go for 25 pixels and press OK to that. Now I'm going to copy this selection to the clipboard, into memory in other words. And to do that you just go to Edit, Copy, or press the shortcut Control and C on the keyboard. And that's now in the computer's memory. What I can now do is close down this image. I'll just shut it down, which leaves me with the background I like, up on screen. Now because it's in the computer's memory, I'm going to go to Edit and Paste, or the shortcut Control and V. So I'll click on that, and my foreground gets pasted straight into the new document. Now it's in the wrong place, it's actually pasted it right into the middle. So I'm just going to select the Move tool and drag it down to the bottom of the image. There we go. Now that already isn't too bad a join. Often what you need to do with this kind of thing is do some transforming, and this is quite simple. All you need to do is go to Image, Transform, and use Free Transform. There's a shortcut for this too, which is Control and T. And that allows you to just vary the angle. So you don't need to have your stream flowing uphill, you can actually have it on the flat. And I guess I want it round about somewhere around there would be good. So to accept the transform, all you need to do is double click inside the transform bounding box, just anywhere inside this section of the screen, and that will process and fix the image in place there. Now what we have are two separate layers. If I push F11 on the keyboard, if you're using the full version of Photoshop, press F7 to bring up the layers palette. And you can see there we've got our layer 1, that's the bit we've pasted in, the foreground detail, and we've got our normal background, which is the this area here. We can actually look at them independently if we switch them off. There's the bit we've pasted in, and there's the bit we've pasted onto. Now the important thing is getting a good seamless join. I'll just hide the layers palette out of the way. We can see we've got layer 1 selected, that's our foreground area. So I'll just press F11 and get rid of that. What we need to do is actually look at our join and get that seamless. So we need to zoom in first of all, pick up the zoom tool and just go in tight on the image. Now to scroll around the screen, just hold down the space bar and just click and drag, and you can move your image about wherever you want it to go. I'm just going to bring up the layers palette again, because we need to click on and off with our layer to see where our join actually is. Sometimes it can be a bit hard to see. So I'll leave that handy. I'll just hang it off the side of the screen over there. And you can see there we need to do a little bit of joining. I'm going to use this fence line as my my natural join. So I'll pick up the eraser. I need a fairly small brush. I'm going to go for a 60 pixel brush here, and I'm just now tidying up. So I'm just erasing a little bit of that. I'm taking off this layer here, the layer 1, the new foreground element, and just erasing down to make a nice join. I want to be careful here. I want to leave that rock intact, so I'm just going to go around it. And then holding down the spacebar and dragging to scroll along the image. You can see there I'm just making the join as seamless as I can, trying to prevent any ghosting around the image. Just move along a bit more. We'll just check our join again. You can see it's just about there. That's good. I'm just moving along the edge. It's all looking fairly seamless actually, which is nice. And there we need to be a bit more creative. We've got to follow the line of this wall down because it starts to ghost, it starts to disappear. So I'm just going to run the eraser along the edge of the wall and scroll along a bit more. Running it through, we've got those tree roots. Let's just have a quick look at those. I think we'll get away with that if we just dab the eraser around this area. It should be okay. Yeah, that's working fine. There's our trees coming into view. Just moving along the edge. There's an element of trial and error with this kind of work, but it's important to keep on checking where your real join is. You can see there that's actually working pretty well. That's good. We'll bring in those people on the path. They sort of add a sense of scale to our landscape. Just checking again. We need to go round this particular rock. Leave that in the foreground. Then we can just run up to here. I think we're just about done there. I want to leave this area intact. Of course it's not really there at all, but it looks like it is. And that's the secret of it. So I'll just come back out to full screen while clicking the hand tool. And there you can see our image, which is quite nicely joined up. That's how it really is, clicking on the eye icon in the layers palette, and that's what we've turned it into. I kind of like that, but you'll notice there's a slight problem here in that the colour balance is very different in the foreground than it is in the background. We've got quite a warm tone in the background, which is looking good, but the foreground's a bit cooler than that. It's simply from using an auto white balance on the camera. So what we're going to do to try and match the two together is quite a quick technique. I'm happy with the colours in the background here, these nice warm tones, so I'm going to keep working on the foreground layer, and I'm going to bring up the levels palette. Now that's quite easy, just hit Control and L on the keyboard, and up comes the levels. And you see these eyedroppers here. You've got one that sets the black point, one that sets the white point, and one that sets a mid-tone grey. And I'm going to use that, so I'll just click on that one. And then we can just click on our image to find a midpoint. That was quite lucky. That is about right, actually, which is interesting. If I click somewhere else, for example, you can see that that's very wrong. But you're looking for a grey tone that actually brings the colour balance into line. And you can see that's getting close, but I think it was around about here. Yeah, there's nice warm tones. So you can just sample various areas around your image until you get a reasonable colour match. And when you do get a good match, like I have there, click OK on the Levels palette. And you can see there that the colour balance is actually pretty good in that image. And that's pretty much all there is to it, to adding new foreground. One thing that I would like to do with this particular image, the sky is a little bit bland at the moment, so what I'm going to do is make another selection using the lasso tool here. I'm just going to draw a rough line along the sky, and then around the outside of the image. I'm going to feather this particular selection that I've just made as well. So we'll go to Select, Feather. I'm going to go for quite a big feather this time of 100 pixels and click OK. Then I'm just going to bring in an adjustment layer. That's this icon down at the bottom of the Layers palette. So just click on that and again choose Levels. And what this does is allows you to make an adjustment over the image. We can go lighter or darker. We only want a little bit of darkness. Yeah, that's about right there. So I'll click OK to that, and you'll see the adjustment layer sits above all the other layers in the Layers palette. And it's called an adjustment layer because you can adjust it. If you double click on this particular icon here, it brings up your Levels palette again. So you can always go back. It doesn't actually change the pixels within the image, it's just data. So it doesn't use up too much memory, and it means you can freely adjust levels afterwards. So if you're doing a more complex image here and making a composite with many more layers and different components within it, you could actually go back and adjust them to make sure everything matches well afterwards. But that's all I need there, so I'll click OK. And there you can see we've got a much improved image. And to finish off, of course, all we need to do is flatten it into one single layer, which is easy. Just click on the arrow at the top right of the Layers palette and select Flatten Image. And that crunches all our layers, our foreground and background layer and our adjustment layer, down into one single layer called Background. And there's our image. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Have a go at finding good foreground elements within your landscapes. They're always vital to get those. And I'm sure you'll agree that's a much improved image from the one we started with.